After my full flexibility session today at Stretch, I feel great, comfortable. Doing the full squat in my exercise class, I feel I have more mobility.
First things first, how will you use the word mobility versus the word flexibility when you are communicating? When you look at the meaning and definition of the word mobility, it gives you an obvious clue. It is always described with the same M word, movement. The same with your cell phone. You actually move around from one place to another with your cell phone. Am I right? That is why it's also known as mobile phone. Mobility is an adjective from the word mobile, which is noun. And the origin of mobile is from the old French word, which means move. Conclusion is just right under your nose. Mobility requires movement. How are you going to apply this word to yourself and to other people? If I see you doing a full body movement and you nailed it like a perfect performance of a full squat to standing or standing to full squat, you were impressed. No, not just impressed, but you were flabbergasted. I will say,
Oh my God! Oh my goodness! You have an excellent mobility!
do I sound like the judges in the world of dance? You are in full control of the movement and mindfully connected to your nervous system. In addition, a full squat requires not just one joint, but a full kinetic chain of joint movement. It is the action of the whole functional system, as we described. There is also an element of volume with mobility instead of intensity, which is one characteristic of the word flexibility. So, with the word flexibility, it negates movement by context. Its interest is more confined to length or the amount of range of motion around a joint, very specific to certain soft tissue in your body that is capable to stretch without breaking. You can say that mobility is a multitask word, but flexibility is commonly monotask. With the same previous example, I would say,
Your calves are pretty flexible. I can see that you can keep your feet flat on the ground easily with full squat.
even though your mobility is a broader word to describe function, it is also correctly applied to an isolated joint articulations. But again, nothing to do with length. You could add from the previous sentence,
I don't see any mobility issue with your ankle joint. It seems your calves flexibility works well with it.
to make the story short, anything that is more into active control motion would definitely be linked with mobility. To think about mobility is to think about the whole system that makes you move. You can have flexibility or more length of soft tissue, but this does not mean that you can move effectively and efficiently. Common stretches are directed segmentally or by joint isolation to assess and objectively find out and measure the amount of range of motion to finally come up with a benchmark for a goal, specifically flexibility goal. Since manual stretch is more concerned about length, you can say that flexibility is mainly linked to a relaxed and passive, uncontrolled motion setting. In flexibility, you do not necessarily have control over the joint motion. In comparison with mobility, which is all about active motion and participation of an efficient muscle or muscles. Since mobility pertains to broader and global sense, therefore to measure a functional movement or mobility would be difficult and different from every individual. In fact, it's unique to everybody. There are people who move and walks more efficiently than others, and there are people who move and run more efficiently than others. Measuring your whole body functional movement accurately needs a more complex approach compared to measuring isolated flexibility length in a given single motion. That is why if you think about the word flexibility, it is more linked to being objective or something that you can measure and come up with a number than mobility, which is more subjective.
After my full flexibility session today at Stretch, I feel great, comfortable. Doing the full squat in my exercise class, I feel I have more mobility.
I hope now it's very clear that literally maximum length or the end range of motion is the goal for flexibility. Mobility, on the other hand, is more concerned on the harmony and interconnecting chain of joint movement instead of measuring the stretch capacity of a soft tissue. Being flexible per se, then, it's not equal to having a great mobility. As a practitioner, following the fundamental principles of movement, the foremost objective in a flexibility session is not the ability to reach a maximum length, but rather the overall balance of your own unique body structure that will correlate to a better development of an enhanced mobility. To give you another hint, in mobility assessment and evaluation, the specialist usually applies social distancing, sometimes more than 6 feet away, to visually fit your whole body during the process. In flexibility assessment, the specialist is usually closer to the target area to accurately identify landmarks for measuring the specific length. And sometimes they have a measuring tool called goniometer, a common tool in a physical therapy setting. I therefore conclude that functional mobility comprises of aggregates of your demonstrated flexibility around each joint of your body. It is graded subjectively by how comfortable are you from moving in and out from a specific position. In general, mobility is well accepted on the basis of its usefulness to your activities of daily living or ADL, or to your specific performance goal. Flexibility is the actual outcome from the stretching exercise program that can be considered a primary requirement for a progressive overall mobility change. What is your thought about mobility versus flexibility? Leave your comment and suggestion below. Looking forward for more of your tips and suggestions. Always subscribe to video like this. Click the thumbs up icon if you like what I shared today. And remember to ring the bell as well for notification of new and valuable upload every week. This is yours truly, personal coach. Before I sign off, let me share to you my brief insight for the day. Let go of your old unproductive habits and routine. Learn to adapt to change. Change is happening more than what you are expecting. Be flexible. Your developed flexibility will inspire you to move and maybe, just maybe, improve your overall mobility. With the right mindful setting, you will get the right sense of well-being. Thank you for listening. This is Jace Lee. I am an active, isolated stretch practitioner.